All right, official start of episode. Hey, folks, I'm Ash, and people have been asking me what ash is short for, and it's short for ash borers are invasive species that are threatening our wildlife and wetlands. So just call me Ash for short. And yes, I just wrote that yesterday, and I'm very proud of it. I am an Ecuadorian NB, they them pronouns, celebrating 3 years and 3 months of recovery from substance abuse and mental illness this week. Yes. And I am on day 2 of my cycle, and I am feeling really excited to have our awesome guest here, Arawn. And I am, it's Arawn, yes, or Arawn?
Correct. Arawn.
You go,
The
okay,
the emphasis on the second syllable.
awesome. Great, thank you so much. And besides from that, physically connection to my cycle, I was like cramping a lot last night, and then my chest has been hurting a lot, more so than any other time in my career of bleeding. And that is very confusing because I have a lot of chest dysphoria, but lately I've become friends with my chest and now it's like starting to hurt. But one thing that I was told to use before was magnesium to help with menstrual discomfort. And so I was thinking like, okay, like that could help with the chest discomfort and stuff like that. So I took one today. I mean, I'm feeling a little bit better, but I hope it kind of stays that way in the future. But that's kind of how I'm feeling. But second day of cycle, pretty heavy, but really excited. And our special guest today, I will let them introduce themselves.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Arawn. I am a transmasculine non-binary artist. My pronouns are they, he. I just finished a art project that was stickers with fruit that had color schemes from pride flags. So it was kind of a subtle way of celebrating your pride in places that might not be so safe. My next project is basically fey mythological creatures with either queer bodied or queer coded or fat bodies. And that's kind of an extension of just trying to celebrate ourselves because though like our bodies are often the parts that we're really shamed for. And so this project is to kind of try and help flip that script about it. So
Amazing. I love some of the stuff that you've shared so far. It's really good stuff, y'all. Your art has a lot of spiritual references. Can you speak a little about your connection to spirituality?
yeah. So my spirituality is fairly complicated. I think anyone who's been raised in kind of a high demand religion can kind of relate to that, especially if you're queer. Um, so my spirituality growing up was heavily influenced by Mormonism, which was the religion I grew up with. And it was an anchor in a very dark, like there a lot of my childhood was really dark. I was really depressed and really lost because I didn't really have a name for a lot of the things that I was going through. And so I kind of clung to this religion. And it was only later on when I did a lot of work to understand what was going on um, for me outside of religion that I was able to kind of find a spirituality outside of that religion. And for those who don't know, Mormonism is very anti-queer. And it was one of the reasons why it took so long for me to really be able to embrace that aspect of myself. But when, so my, and this is one of the reasons why we're even bringing it up in this podcast, but my introduction to kind of paganism slash animism slash spirituality outside of religion was actually through my attempts to kind of understand and honor my cycle. And because I actually, so I'm on testosterone. When I used to have a cycle, it was really bad. Like it was really painful. Um, we'll probably get into that later. But
Mhm.
so when I was trying to kind of make it so it was bearable, I did a lot of research, and that research led me to um, the kind of mysticism around menstruation, I guess you would say, the like energy cycles around it. And um, when I was doing that research, I read Women Who Run with Wolves, which is very gendered, but was really good for me at the time. It talks about kind of embracing your sovereignty and your intuition, which oftentimes high demand religions teach you the opposite, like to put your trust and what people like in positions of power say over what you intuitively know. And so for me, it wasn't until I started embracing that that I was even able to really embrace my spirituality, so, well, my spirituality, but also my queerness.
Ah,
So
that I was about to ask you exactly that. Yeah, your connection from spirituality to queerness. And it really sounds like it's been just connected through the whole, like a lot of your process anyway, um, with your spiritual development, which is, I don't know. I mean, some of it sounds very dark, but then it sounds also really empowering and like, yeah, self-strengthening.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Could you let us know briefly about your Forbidden Fruits project?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I actually designed like kind of the seed, haha, pun, of the idea behind it was when I was in a spot that wasn't really safe for me to be out to a lot of people. And but it was I was also in the process of trying to understand myself and also kind of embrace that side of me, right? And so whenever I saw someone with like a rainbow thing, I was like, I really want that, but I'm also scared to have something like really obvious, right? And I was also like we said, I told you I wasn't going to talk about Mormonism a lot, but apparently
No.
it's part of my journey. But I was part of this online group of like queer people who were related to Mormonism somehow. And so like I was only not only seeing my experience, but their experience about how you had to be really careful about where you were out. And so that's kind of where that idea came from. The fruit part is related to like Eve and the piece of fruit that was kind of the forbidden knowledge. And there's a lot of parallels there with queerness, with accepting your own intuition. That I really liked the symbolism, and it all fell together like really cool. It was really cool.
It is very cool. And wait, shit. I have like one of them on my water bottle, and they're very cool, and they're very loud, and you should get them. And I like how they like shine. Some of them shine. You can also get them not shiny as well. And I suggest y'all get some or get some for some people as gifts. Yes. They're really cool. It's kind of interesting, like that like fruity used to be like such a word for queers. And I don't know. I think that's such a like connecting thing that it's like the um the fruit of knowledge as well is like, I don't know. For some people highly revered and for some people like a no-no, you know. But yeah. Anything else you want to mention before we take a break?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. Yes. Okay. I think, yeah, we'll take a break there and then we'll come back and talk about our topic. Okay. And we're back. So, our topic is gonna be menstruation and testosterone. I'm going to read a few things. Feel free to chime in on any of these things. So, first of all, for those of y'all who don't know or maybe have not listened to my other episodes, testosterone is a hormone labeled as an androgen. It is stored in the ovaries and testes, aka the gonads of everybody. And I am so grateful somebody told me that gonads are like for testes and ovaries. I did not know that, and now I'm going to use that. And bleeders' testosterone will spike during ovulation to aid in the production of estrogen, which is also in the gonads, because making the body fertile involves heightening all of these hormones and gives you the effect of like increase in libido. And some say it's helpful for repairing and growing reproductive organs. So PCOS is also mentioned a lot when talking about testosterone because many folks who have PCOS have higher testosterone, but from what I understand from these studies, is that there's still no known cause of PCOS, and studies are very inconclusive about whether testosterone causes PCOS. It's just that they notice people with PCOS tend to have, higher testosterone, but still isn't like a correlation or anything like that. And so if you didn't know by now, some trans folks receive testosterone, which is a naturally occurring substance to achieve some gender euphoric results on their bodies. And so here are some studies that I got on its effect on the cycle. So I read some awesome articles and you all need to check out this resource guide. It's packed. So Parker Hurley is a transmasc writer for the Cancer Institute, and he has this fantastic article. I'm just very geeked out by it because it's so cool. It's about the effect of tea on the ovaries and things to consider when taking tea, and what the doctors do know and what they don't know. So they do know with studies that there are many transmasc people that have PCOS, but there is no study that shows direct correlations into taking tea and getting PCOS afterwards. And they also have really good tips for taking tea, like getting your hormone levels tested or how to deal with doctors. And they also have a bunch of these other resources and like Q&A stuff. So I would highly check that out. His name is Parker Hurley, and I'm gonna put that link in my resource guide. There was a study done in 2018 by the Endocrine Institute that says and confirms taking tea does not induce PCOS. So just wanted to kind of confirm that in there. And then a study by the National Library of Medicine showed that 74 people in the study, they did a study. Yeah, they did a study on 74 people. 55% of the people stopped bleeding within 6 months, and then 32% stopped within 6 to 12 months, and then 7% after 1 year. And a few of those people started to use progesterone to help stop their cycle. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And then there was a blog from McLean Clinic, which is a clinic that specializes in top surgery in California, that says an intro of testosterone can start elongating the length between cycles and then make them less frequent and then at higher doses stop them completely. They say it suppresses ovulation because the interaction between estrogen and progesterone is what makes it stop. So I don't know. They say that it doesn't rule out the possibility of pregnancy at the beginning, but at some point, if you don't ovulate, there isn't a chance. So that's kind of, yeah. So then my last article that I will say is other side effects of tea include acne, oily skin, higher arousal, voice change, increased muscle mass, increased hair growth. And then some folks eventually have some hair loss too. But mostly, I mean, that is coming with age. And the National Library of Medicine had another really sexy article basically saying in great detail about all the side effects of tea. And it was a 2021 study. And it also talked about insulin levels, which was something I didn't find in the other articles, which was very cool. And essentially, the whole thing is to say that doing it safely causes awesome, gorgeous results. And I'll have that study also because they really really like dove in the details of what has happened in what percentage of people, and it's very cool. So after all that, do you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the things I just read?
I mean, of the things that I've read, they caution against just relying on testosterone as a birth control method. So, like, just because you're on T, that shouldn't be your only way of preventing pregnancy. So, just throwing that out there.
Mhm.
Um, and also the hair loss. Um, so, I am actually starting to thin um, here. And it tends to rely on your maternal side of things. So I got really unlucky there because my dad has like this amazing head of hair. And my maternal uncles tend to all have are either bald or have the receding hairline. So I am doing some things to try and help at least slow that down, but that is going to be a reality for me. So
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, but I think like aging for me is kind of a process that I think could be in our society embraced a lot more than it is.
for sure.
Yeah. So, like I told we do live in a society, so like it's understandable that it'd be like kind of like I want to keep my hair, I want to do this, but like, uh I have this singer I really love. It's a deep cut because I don't know if a lot of people know him. His name's Jeffrey Lewis, and he's just a guy in New York. He makes little comics, but he has this song and he says, "Going bald is the most manly thing I'm ever gonna do." And even though I'm not, very, very much so not a man for me, but like, I don't know, that sentiment of just like embracing, you know, the whole song is about giving the earth back what it's loaned you, essentially.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's just one of my favorite things, but I understand, like, I love my hair, so totally feel that grief. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's harder when you don't fit into other parts of what society has deemed attractive slash acceptable slash whatever. And so, like, I'm definitely fat by society standards, which fat isn't necessarily a bad thing, but by society standards it is. And so there's a hard like it's difficult to find that kind of balance of like, is this me quote unquote trying to make up for not fitting into those standards? Or is this just something that's truly just innately part of what I desire? And I think it's the latter one. But if it comes to the point where I can't, like, if I need to let it go, then, like I think that will be okay too. Like,
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I think that's really important and gonna resonate with a lot of people. I'm, yeah, similarly doing a lot of the like, I don't know, there's a lot of like different words for it, but like just like embracing like different body types. They think there's like this cool zine where it's like all about anti-fat phobia and body neutrality and things like that. Um And it's like I want to embrace that on one hand, and then on the other hand I'm like so innately like wanting to be what I have always known as like, you know, attractive and like, oh, like I like this on myself kind of thing. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's very, very deep. uh, I wanted to ask, so what, um, if you could give a message to somebody who um, was going to take tea and has either a poor relationship to their cycle or who maybe has a neutral relationship to their cycle, if what kind of message would you give to them before or on that journey?
um, well, I think that like, this is a very difficult, it's very complex journey slash topic because you're taking in this dysphoria, right? And so there's a certain aspect of it that is societal, where people are saying, like, this is what a man is. And if you don't fit into this, then um, they kind of almost impose dysphoria around that onto you and say, like, you shouldn't be okay with this. This shouldn't be part of yourself. And then there are also like the innate aspects of it. But, and so being able to connect with your body at all within that kind of maelstrom of emotions and messages can be very difficult. And if you've got other things going on, like, can be almost impossible. Um, I'm kind of lucky in the fact that I processed a certain amount of my trauma before I even embraced my queerness. And so I have a lot of skills and tool sets that I've used to have kind of more of a positive connection with my body and my queerness, um, versus some other like younger people that I've talked to who have also gone through a lot of trauma and haven't really had that benefit of like the disconnect. And so they can, I've seen that people can get really, really stuck on like the transition of it and completely disconnect themselves from their physical current body. And so, as I said, like, this is a very complex situation because I can't say like I can't label one action as good and one action as bad, right? But if you have a bad connection with your cycle because you have a bad connection with your body, um, like, if you don't take the time to actually process that, then that's going to continue to carry on even after you start transitioning.
Mm.
And so you're going to have to process that. You're going to have to like turn and look at all of that stuff at some point. And so it's kind of up to you and your circumstances when you can do that. And yeah.
Wow. That was amazing. Like I I've had similar thoughts on for people who for example like try to lose weight but they never change their mind about the way they're perceiving their body, and so then they achieve their ideal whatever it is and then they're still not, you know, satisfied. It's like, you know, until you get into that mindset of like, but wow, that also, yeah, there isn't like an inherently good or bad thing, you know, because it's like this, yeah, it's not, you know, it's really, it's sensitive, like, and it's very personal because everybody's so different and the way they experience their transition or their gender affirmation is different. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not an expert at all of this. And so I can kind of like share my perspective, but
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't, I can't like speak directly to any situation except for my own personal
Yeah.
situation.
But I think what you did say is very like affirming, I'm sure. Like I felt very like, I don't know, not seen because I'm not taking testosterone, but you know, like you know, your words are very compassionate and that's really great.
Well, thank you.
Do you have a cycle that you flow with now? And what are the energetics of that cycle?
So we've talked about this for several months now, I think. It's been a while. And so and ever since then I've tried to pay attention to see if there are like smaller cycles of energy that I could notice, because we did talk about how um my energy is very connected with the seasons. So I have a lot more energy during the summertime. It tends to wane significantly during the wintertime. Um, and this is one of the things that I noticed when I kind of got into the paganism aspect of things. Um, that like even projects that I do tend to like I just had a kind of harvest of a project I've been working on for a long time, during the fall, during when you would typically have a harvest. And same thing, the winter tends to be a time where I'm kind of getting rid of old things in preparation for like a rebirth. And I don't even do this on purpose. It's just my life kind of naturally falls into these cycles. Um, and so I tried to pay attention to see if there was a smaller cycle, like there had been when I was menstruating. And if there is one, I didn't notice it, but I'm still very dysregulated. So you talked about in one of your episodes, I don't remember which one, about how like emotional and like nervous system dysregulation really affects the energetics of all of that.
Mhm.
And I'm processing a lot of stuff right now. And so there might be one when I get to a place that I'm a little bit more regulated, but at this point there isn't. So
Yeah. I think the seasonal one, the cycle is very beautiful, and I think um it can be useful for someone with seasonal. I think most people honestly have seasonal affective disorder, but because I don't know, I haven't heard someone who is like, I absolutely love winter. I've not heard someone like that, but
well, I've definitely heard people like that, but
oh, okay, okay, well, that's fair. All right.
they are out there.
Yeah, yeah. Have you noticed any relationship with that and like kind of like embracing this cycle? Do you notice a relationship between seasonal affective disorder and the energetics of your cycle and connecting to it? So basically, like, does it help in any way?
Okay, so one of the things that kind of trying to reconnect with my cycle helps me with slash the spirituality side that I got into was it helped me um really tune into what was going on with my body, and also say, okay, there are going to be cycles where I can do more, and there are cycles that I'm going to not be able to do more,
Mm.
and to kind of make space for that. And so that aspect of it, even before I went on testosterone, did help me kind of embrace that, okay, like there's this smaller cycle when I have my menses that I'm less energetic. And then there's the bigger cycle um, of like going into winter, and just because like we live in a society that's always like go go go, and especially around winter time there's all of these holidays, you're expected to travel, and so instead of slowing down you're doing the opposite and you're like revving up, and like recognizing that that was messing with me and making it so that my moods were even lower because I was taking all of this, like didn't have that much energy to begin with, and then I was wasting all of it on this other stuff, was making my moods even worse. So just like the whole like respecting where your body is and making allowances for that was really important in like it didn't make my seasonal affective disorder go away, but it at least helped me have a little bit more resources to handle it. So
Amazing. Yeah. I think that can be really helpful for people because, yeah, especially for queer people, holidays are
Traumatic.
tough. And for people who are also sober, my first holiday sober is, is a lot, definitely a lot. Um, well, let's go to our next segment. So that was our topic segment. We've completed that segment. Our next segment is our bloodstained. I might do um my story, and then we might take another break so we could reset the Zoom, and then we'll do yours. Sound good? Okay. Also, feel free to jump in my story as well, because it's just a very funny story. Okay, so in this story, I have to change someone's name in it. What would you like to name them? They were my best friend when I was a little kid.
Okay. Gender.
Girl. She,
Okay. Um, let's see. That is difficult. Veronica.
Veronica. Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So this story is about how my hymen might have broke, possibly. We don't know. We don't have confirmation. So basically, this is what happened. When I was younger, like around like 5, I had, or maybe even like earlier than 5, I had this best friend. We would see each other all the time, and our parents were best friends. And we were super tight, but then she moved away. And like I said, I was like 5. So years later, when we were both 10 and 11, she came to visit. And obviously we didn't stay in touch because we were children. So we didn't have like phones. So it was just really awkward. And she like came to visit for a few days with her family. And so like we were so different by the time we saw each other. And so like when we were playing, we were trying to basically impress each other and outdo each other. And yeah, so we went to the park and we were like climbing the swing set. And so like we're like climbing up the top of the bar where the swings are holding on, kind of like little raccoons. And I end up letting go, basically, like I'm like hanging on it like this, and then I let go and I land on the swing set. Yeah, yeah, I see your face. You're like, you know where this is going. I land on the swing set like I'm straddling the swing set, like it just like hits my crotch and like a wedgie, and it's terrible. And so I cried, and like this was like so embarrassing because like basically we were trying, like she didn't wear shoes to the park and wanted to walk on the mulch, and like, you know, like I'm tough and I wanted to do that too. And so like that's kind of where we were at. And so I freaking fell. I hit my crotch on the swing. I run to my older sister who brought us to the park, and I'm like crying. And I reached down my pants because I felt like something was wrong. And I was so embarrassed that I did that. My sister was embarrassed that I did that. And I'm pretty sure Veronica saw it, but like whatever. And it was just embarrassing. But I had to look. And so like there was like a little bit of blood on my hand, just like a teeny little bit. And so we walked home, and I was like upset. I went to the bathroom. There was like a droplet of blood on my underwear. And so I told my mom, and I told my mom that I had my period because I just thought that's maybe what it was. I don't know. And there was people over, and I really couldn't tell if she was supportive or not. Like it was hard to like judge her reaction, but she gave me a panty liner, but I didn't bleed at all after that. It was like a couple drops, and then that was it. And so me and Veronica did not really talk much the rest of her visit, not just because of that though. Like that was like a big embarrassing incident, and we didn't talk for like a little bit, you know. But um we were just really different from each other. Like, for example, like she claimed that she was like a wolf all the time, like 24/7. And so it was just like really hard to relate to someone who's a wolf 24/7. It's just like we're 10, you know. So I don't know, we just didn't really connect, but I always for a long time cringed at that memory for sure. Um and yeah, but my hypothesis is that the blood was my hymen breaking from the fall, but like nothing like ripped necessarily. I didn't get a chance to like look under the hood because I had visitors in my house. Like I was sharing a room. Like I couldn't see the damage done. So that's kind of what I truly think happened because I can't imagine, yeah, there was any other explanation. Yeah, unless it was like, yeah, nothing was like cut necessarily. So I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Looks like a very unique set of circumstances for sure. Okay.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that is my story. Okay, let's see. We have 10 minutes on this thing left, but I want to give you enough time. So I'm gonna say take a break now, and then we'll come back and you can have like a full, you can have the floor.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
Cool, yeah. And we'll just like click back in. So
Okay.
Ron, tell us your favorite story. In other words, your blood stain.
Um, well, since we talked about testosterone, I figure let's talk about my first menstrual cycle after that.
First cycle on tea.
So I, like as I mentioned before, had a lot of health issues going on. And like not only was there a lot of stuff going on with my period, but also just health in general that I won't get into. But I was really worried about like adding testosterone into the mix and seeing like whether that was going to be positive or negative for my health. So I actually started on a really low dose. I started on a zero point 0.1 milliliter per, I think I did it twice a week, or I either did it once a week and then cycled into twice a week. Just trying to really ease it into my system. So that's a pretty low dose. That's definitely not a therapeutic dose. So my first cycle was normal for me. And for me, isn't quote unquote normal. But
Yeah, who's normal?
then, yeah, I mean, I've talked to enough people who have similar cycles that it's a certain normal. But after that, I ramped up to a normal amount. And so that was, I got some spotting the next time around, but then after that, I pretty much stopped bleeding. Um, and since my cycle sucked so much, I was very happy about that. Like there, there was a little bit of mourning because I didn't have that like reminder to try to check in with myself and like that kind of just built in spirituality of the cycles essentially. But other than that, I was very happy to be not bleeding anymore. um, though speaking of that reminds me of something that came up when you were talking about your current cycle. um, so, and this is kind of more of the mysticism side of around menstruation, but people talk about how your menstrual cycle is kind of a way of processing whatever happened that month. And so, Ash talking about how they were processing their relationship with their chest, and then during their menstruation cycle, they started having chest pain. For me, that kind of really triggered that just when people talk about in that concept. So
Yeah, like the wound coming up and I have been like kind of I've been using like this affirmation like I am at peace with the impermanence of my body and my gender. And I've been really coming to peace with my chest. And then it's kind of like one of those like the body is so aware, like when you said that, I was like, yeah, you know what? And it is again is like, like trusting the intuition of your body. It's like my body is making me more the body knows that I'm being intentional with that part of my body, and so it's also in my cycle showing up like a reflection almost. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that insight. That wisdom. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, what I've been working on intergenerational trauma. There we go. That's the word. For quite a while. And for me, when I was bleeding and would be doing some of that work, that would be when it was most painful.
Mm,
Um, and it kind of helped me see it from that perspective because I was like, okay, at least there's some purpose for this pain, like it's like leaving, instead of just hanging around.
yeah, it's like exiting the body,
Mhm.
literally.
Yeah. And so I would like during that period, I was gifting my blood to the earth. I had an area where I could do that safely. And so I would do kind of I would talk about that, like both with kind of my ancestors, but also kind of the earth around it, and just trying to kind of ask the earth to take that pain and process it into something that was useful and could, beneficial, basically.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. I I like one of the reasons I like the menstrual cup is like that kind of stuff. Is like really get to honor the blood and yeah, use it in that way. I got to get one of those discs. Um, but I'm really hoping to have just a whole episode on um blood divination and reading into both like on a health scale and like using like the science and also spiritually what it shows up like symbolically for people, um
That'd be really cool.
yeah, yeah. I have some of those notes about like what different colors mean and what I interpret certain things to mean as well. But I will have to record another one because I want to talk a lot about it. Yeah. Um,
Uh,
yeah. All right. Ready for our next segment?
ready.
Okay. It is a fun one. You won't believe what we're gonna that's like such clickbait. You won't believe what we're about to roast and review. We're gonna do a product review of the Lily Cup. The Lily Cup. Um, Aaron, Arawn, Arawn. I
You
apologize.
got it.
I
You got
totally did it. Totally fucking did it. It's on record. Oh, yeah.
It's totally cool.
Arawn, do you have a preference of whether you want to review the product before I tell you about the company or after?
I can go after. Definitely interested in this. I don't think I did much research. So
Yeah. No worries. No worries. I did a lot of research. So now, and then I have a lot of thoughts. So that's why I want to give you the choice
Oh,
of
do you want to just like hear my thoughts and then we'll go into it?
right. Like if you want to be like give your unbiased opinion before I like wreck this whole company, basically.
Well, I mean, you already know that I don't have the highest opinion of this cup, so
Word. All right. Yes. So we are reviewing it. Aron used to be a user of the Lily Cup. I have not used the Lily Cup, but I looked into this company. So the company is called Intimina, and they produce these Lily Cups. This cup is advertised for a higher cervix, and it has an easy to remove stem. They have an A size and a B size for those who have weak pelvis or for those who have given birth. And the color of these cups is light pink or hot pink. What color was your cup? Was it like the hot pink or like
I think it was the light pink.
word, word? I like it. And then it's 100% silicone. What's different about this cup is, well, obviously that it's taller for a high cervix, but also that it has a no spill rim. So like the rim, if you could imagine like a cup that has a little I guess like more of a lip around the top so it doesn't spill as easily. It's about $23.21 USD, and it says that one cup does the job of 1,700 tampons. So it's eco-friendly. The poor reviews of this site, because I love looking at the poor reviews first, because I feel like they're very honest, is that they said because the lack of holes like its competitors, so diva cups for example and other menstrual cups have these little holes at the top that help with the suction to keep it in place. So the lily cup doesn't have these, so basically people were reporting that it doesn't pop open, and that it doesn't suction very well. It's advertised to roll up as thin as a tampon. Like you roll it up like a little cigarette, I guess it looks like it looks like you're rolling up like a blunt or something. But then apparently it's not that easy though. It's not a good roll up. No. Aaron's shaking their head. So yeah, they're saying it doesn't work for certain body types. It's not for first time users or for people with super high cervixes. It didn't work. And also some people whose cervix moves lower during their cycle, because that is something that happens. And folks with endometriosis would have leaks. Um, and a lot of people say that they just have leaks because it moves around inside. This is something like, though I will say, just to give them some credit, like some people report like bleeding more than what is considered quote unquote normal. And I've mentioned this like in my first episode, like some people really be bleeding, like, like, and I think, products should also consider that too. Like some days are heavier than what's considered normal, quote unquote. And for those people, it's like, it is normal still, that's part of what they have to do, like live with. But the positive reviews of this, I also looked at those, is that it is really smooth silicone. A lot of people really said like the silicone is super duper soft in comparison, and it's helpful for people with high cervixes who've tried other cups. And there was lots of those reviews, so take that with a grain of salt. I just like to focus on the negative reviews, but the positive reviews were really good, and yeah, they liked the smoothness, so that's really great. It looks really smooth, so that's cool. Intamina has other products as well. And they have the Ziggy cup, which is like a cup that's made for mess-free period sex. They have Lily Compact, which is like a collapsible cup. They have Lily Cup 1, which is a starter cup. They have Kegel Smart, which is a Kegel device that helps you strengthen your Kegels and helps you record your data. And then they also have lube, so a little bit more than cups. More on Intamina. Or Aaron, what type of cup do you
I'm
remember?
pretty sure I got the beginner one.
Beginner? Okay, cool. Cool.
Like if that was like, I want to say like 10 plus years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. Was it like a straight like thing that you can pull out, or was there like kind of a little loop at the end?
There was no loop.
Okay, yeah. Their new like Lily Cup 1 has like a little like loop, I guess, that you can like latch onto to pull out. I don't know. It's I think they just like tried to make one look more user friendly than the other ones, but yeah. More on Intamina. So they're a Swedish company. They say that their products are non-toxic, phthalate free, which is very hard to say 'cause it's like PHTH. But anyway,
Yeah.
phthalate free. They comply with the FDA, CE, and ROH regulations. They aim to refine their manufacturing process to reduce CO2 output. They are WEEE compliant, like WEEE, like literally like WEE which stands for Waste Electrical Electronic Equipment. Um, Basically, they're trying to reduce the amount of electronic output. They offer student discounts and they acknowledge period poverty on their website. They also have a lot of social engagement things that you could do on their website by, like, for example, submitting on site like Woman of the Month. So you can make a submission and say, like, I think this person deserves Woman of the Month. And then you can also sign up to be an affiliate of their their um their brand, I guess. I guess it's like for brand deals and stuff. And then they have Green Tamina, which is a period waste calculator to show you how much your period products, how much waste they produce. And then they also have an ebook, a free ebook. It's called Wonder Girls, and to educate young bleeders on menstruation. Their headquarters is in Europe, America, and China. And I did my waste calculator thing to see what it said. It says if I keep using period underwear, I'll save $1,000 by menopause, which is pretty cool. And if I had just used period underwear since I started bleeding, I would have produced 0.26 pounds of waste and spent over $260 on products. But since I did use tampons for a long while, I produced 6.9 pounds of waste and have spent over $1,000 on products so far. Which just kind of makes me think about the time it takes if I were to like order period underwear and the gas that it takes to deliver that product as well. Anyway, so that is okay. That is the thing. That is like the blanket without my bias of the thing so far, but I'm about to be super biased. You
I was
already
waiting for it.
yeah, it's coming, it's coming. So my review is that this website just it made me want to barf. I wanted to barf. It's like they're just like hold on, my little thing. Okay. It made me want to barf. Every product is pink or hot pink, and the whole site is pink, and they only use pictures of feminine thin women, and they only use pronouns, or they only use like woman, girls, and daughters in reference to their buyers. So it's just very like I just feel like not even like women want to be that feminine all the time either. So I'm just like, Jesus. Like it's just like I feel like this company, they didn't say who founded this company on the site either. So I'm just like, man, like I wonder what direction. So not only that, there is more. Yeah, there is more. They have a blog on their site, and it's all about relationships, and it's all about heterosexual relationships, pregnancy, quote unquote women's health. They have like advice, and they have like things about like the pull-up method and heterosex, and just like, you know, like fun date night ideas or just like things like that. And they have these cute pictures of these het relationships, and they have a variety of subjects that go all over the place. And then they have like, so I was like scrolling, I was just like going through this blog, and some of the stuff was interesting and applicable, but like generally that's kind of what it was. They have like one person who writes on their website who has she they pronouns, and I feel like they're like their token like she they writing, and they have literally like 4 blogs in the hundreds where they just kind of say the definition of what non-binary is, and they have one on the definition of intersex and then the definition of heteronormativity. But that's it. Yeah. those are the those are the four diverse blog posts. They don't have anything on like trans men or other trans identities. And yeah, and it doesn't get into any sort of relationship advice or any sex advice or physical advice or any, it's not nuanced really. It's just kind of like your blanket, like this exists, or like it's intersex awareness day or kind of thing like that. It doesn't have any cute pictures of like people or couples or things like that, like the other ones tend to. So all in all, they get points for having a waste calculator. It makes you really think about the waste you're producing, and being non-toxic and eco-friendly. And they also get a point for having soft silicone and bringing awareness to people with higher cervixes. People with higher cervixes deserve some awareness, some props. But the rest of their site is just so much, and just like the ebook for the Wonder Girls is just a lot for it's just too much for me. It's just like a little bit is like for me is like okay, but like they are selling womanhood. They're like literally like they are selling it with that that label. So it's 2 out of 10 for me. So what is your hot take?
Well, I did find it kind of ironic that they put up the definition of heteronormity when that's like the definition of their site.
Yes. Oh my god. Yes. The fact that you can submit Woman of the Month.
Yeah.
Like, abs.
That's kind of amusing. Yeah, so now I am like trying to pull my memory from again, actually, I think it was probably 2013, so probably less than 10 years ago, but pretty close. And so I had never had a menstrual cup before. Was fairly nervous about it because I had never had penetrative sex before. Um, and I, they're intimidating. Like the cups, menstrual cups are intimidating. Um, and so I remember doing research trying to find something that was kind of like beginner friendly slash I felt comfortable about. And all I really remember is like the soft silicone. And now that I've used like the Diva cup, it was significantly softer, like the silicone wise. And so as far as like, and I don't remember reading that it wasn't beginner friendly. Was that on the reviews or was that something they specifically said on the
No,
reviews?
it was a review, yeah.
Okay.
But the other ones were like amazing softness. Yeah.
And they were, it was definitely soft. But and for some reason I was like, okay, I think this is going to be a good beginner one.
Mhm.
And you talked about the folding method. Oh my goodness.
Tell me about the folding method.
I just remember spending so much time trying to fold it in that specific way and having it like pop open and like just it being like this huge pain to try and figure out this because it felt like origami, like
Yeah.
just like how complicated it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um, and
Like
then
a craft when you have your period, like to fit it in. Yeah. It's like
it,
it's like the opposite of trying to make the ship in the little bottle. Like yeah.
pretty similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and um, and then on top of that, as I mentioned before, like I hadn't had penetrative sex. I hadn't like used anything that was bigger than a tampon. And I was having a lot of difficulty with the insertion, um, and way more difficulty than their like little guidebook made it seem. And I had been doing like a lot of like I watched so many YouTube videos trying to figure out how to, because like I'm like, it shouldn't be this complicated, right? Like,
Right.
but it really was. And it wasn't until later, because I think part of I had some missing sex education within there, but like what I didn't realize was um my hymen was blocking it or making it more difficult. And
Wow.
so it took me a long time to figure out that I needed to like stretch that out and like angle it a certain way to kind of get through that before I was even able to insert it. And I can't remember whether I was inserting it when I was just having a really light period or when I didn't have a period, because I had to use um I was using coconut oil as a lube because I couldn't get it in otherwise. And so
Oh,
every time I like folded it up and didn't hold it exactly right, it would like pop open, like spray coconut oil everywhere.
oh
It,
no, my
it was a
God.
whole thing.
Oh no. Like, and
uh,
imagine if like if you had, for example, like tried that in school or something. Like I mentioned this before, like just yeah, just be distracted. But yeah.
yeah. And so it was a whole thing. And then all of those reviews talking about it like not suctioning and it sliding around
Right.
and leaking. I had all of those issues. And like I was like constantly aware of it like throughout the day. Like
Mm,
I could never get really comfortable. So it was not a great introductory menstrual cup, that's for sure for me. Um and I don't remember why I decided to try again, but I did use the Diva cup. And I will say that, like, having it snap open, like after you fold it and you insert it, it kind of snaps open. Like the first couple of times that happened, um, it was kind of like actually painful. So I never did have that with the other one.
right.
So that, as I said, like the really soft silicone was nice in certain areas, but I also think it was contributed to its downfall. And it
Right.
so
Right. Yeah. It's like maybe, that is an important point is though that they don't really talk about the hymen in anything though. Like they don't talk really about it with tampons or with menstrual cups or discs or anything, and I think that is something, especially if you're advertising it for any like a first time user too, you know? Like I think like I remember like in sex ed they were like it shouldn't like your hymen should never really be a problem, but like for some people it is. Like I saw some just like horror stories on YouTube about someone whose like the stem of their cup got like caught in their hymen and they had to go to the doctor to like because she just like couldn't figure it out how to like pull it out of there without hurting herself or something. And I just think I think we need to bring more hymen awareness to the pod and to everybody. Um, yeah, yeah,
I
uh,
back it up. That sounds great.
yeah. Just being aware of it. We don't know. You know, just be aware that it might be a thing in your life. But yeah, with the
I think that that is also a queer issue as well, because
oh
there
yeah,
are going to be like it's not like sex isn't like between two cis people of the opposite genders all the time. And so there's some people who are never going to have penetrative sex, whether it's because they are lesbian or they're asexual, or I mean, there's so many different variations of why they might not have that. And so, like,
they might not hit their crotch on a swing set.
or that.
you know, they might have more brain cells and no, not to do that.
Well, I don't think you did it on purpose. So.
No. It, well, actually, I thought I would land it, to be honest. I thought I would freaking like be, I was like, well, but yeah. climbing up on there.
Okay,
But
that was my bit.
yes, yeah. Out of 10, how would you rate Lily Cup?
I mean, I think the 2 out of 10 is. I mean, I would give them a couple more points because of the eco-friendliness and all of that. Because, like, I think the soft silicone is good. It's a good idea, like especially for first-time users. But I also don't know if that like the soft silicone is the whole reason why it was having difficulty with
Mhm,
moving around as well.
mhm,
In fact, I think it probably there's a high likelihood that it
mhm.
is. So
Well, also the lack of the little holes. So like there's these teeny microscopic little holes in Diva Cup that help it like stay. So I don't know. I wonder if that I think there's a few like a couple things about the mechanics of this cup, you know? Yeah.
I I don't know.
I don't know either, but yeah. So what was your rating?
Go with the 3.
Nice. 3 out of 10. Great. Awesome. I think that is very fair. Yeah, the popping, I mean, yeah, the popping is really weird. I didn't have pain, but the popping of a Diva Cup was also nice and confirming that it is. I was like, okay, there.
I know where it is.
It's there, it's working, it's suctioned, it's safe. And yeah, even though it's yeah, very odd sensation. But yeah. Um, alrighty. Well, that was our product review. We're gonna go on to menstruation history, and depending on how quickly I can read this, or should I even risk it? What do you think? Should I risk it or should I?
Just pop out. It's not that hard.
You're so right. It's not hard. Okay, brief break and then we'll be right back. All right, I have a really special menstruation history. Before that, I'm going to take deep breath so I don't freak out about the thing. And I have my little hang drum, which is, wait, that's not the one. I want to use this one. One time I banged my water bottle and it sounded like a gong. So that's what I breathe to. It sounds like this. Yeah, it sounds like a very nice low bell, if you can hear it. That's my water. But yeah, so today our menstruation history is the first use of testosterone, which goes aligned with our topic, but we're going to talk a little bit about the history of figuring out about testosterone. So I'll give you a little content warning. It gives me pain to my gonads a little bit. So just a heads up that it's about some gonad pain for 1 second, and then it's going to be really beautiful, really beautiful history. So brief, painful history, and then a beautiful rest of the history. The term testosterone was coined in 1935 by this dude, Ernest Lecoeur, when isolating it from bull testes, although it was a well-known hormone at that point because we have these findings. So this is kind of where it gets more painful. Aristotle, from 384 to 322 BC, documented the effects of castration on animals, and so he kind of deduced that there was something going on in there. And then for centuries, even before Aristotle and after, castration was used for punishment, but also for the effect of the lack of testosterone. I remember when I was in music school, we learned about young boys castrating themselves so they can keep their tenor voices. And then centuries later, this guy, John Hunter, which this is such a odd thing to be known for, but this guy, 1786, transplanted testes on a capon, which is a rooster. Yeah, yeah. It's a rooster. Then, uh, like 100 years later, 1894, Adolf Berthold knew of the secretion of testosterone because he did his own testy transplantation. And then in 1889, Brown Sequard did experiments by consuming testes for the testosterone. But yeah, I know. Yeah, he was just like, I wonder what happens if I eat this. But it's curiosity. Um, and the results were also inconclusive. So he just, yeah, literally just eating some gonads. And then finally, thank God, in 1935, tea was successfully chemically synthesized independently by Adolphe Budetant and Leopold Ruzicka. And there were probably some more unfortunate experiments in between all of that time, but testosterone was used for many things after that. For menstruation, for menopause, for muscle gain, for stamina, for aging. But what we're really here for is the first recorded use of it being used for gender affirmation care. And his name is Michael Dillon. And I was so excited when I read this. Like, I'm lighting up. But okay, Michael Dillon, our great transcestor, born in 1915, died in 1962. He always identified as masculine, although he was part of a women's rowing team in Oxford, and he absolutely crushed it. And then he started tea in 1940, provided by a doctor named George Foss, who had been experimenting with tea for excess menstrual bleeding. And he got his birth certificate changed in 1944. He was also the first known person to get gender affirmation surgery by Sir Harold Gillies at Rookstown House in Basingstoke, England in 1950s. And Gillies, the doctor, he had to diagnose him with hypospadias, which is like a common variation in fetal development and the penis, where basically the urethra gets fucked up. That's the doctor term, is the urethra gets fucked up. That's what it said. In order to cover up that he was doing the gender affirmation bottom surgery. So they just kind of said like, oh yeah, he has hypospadias. And then during that time that he was like getting all of these affirmation care, he like became a doctor, like literally became a doctor. And then he married a trans woman, and which is beautiful tea for tea couple. And they did have some legal issues, but I think it's, they became married. And then he wrote this book, and it's called Self, a study in ethics and endocrinology. And it was about being trans. And he said this quote that I really liked was, where the mind cannot be made to fit the body, he wrote, the body should be made to fit approximately at any rate to the mind. And I thought that was a pretty neat quote from that book. And then this book got a little bit of fame, and this led this trans woman to finding him. And because gender affirmation surgery was illegal, and he was like the first known person to get it, and he was a doctor, he performed one of her bottom surgeries. I know, he performed one of her bottom surgeries in secret. Yeah, and he wasn't even like, yeah, I know, he was like a new doctor too. And then later she had the what's in his name? Sir Harold Gillies do another part of the bottom surgery later on. And then because he was legally documented as a man, he was the heir to his brother's baronetcy. But for those that don't know, it's like a fancy title where you're a baron with more money and all this stuff. But there was like a lot of drama with that, of course, too. Lots of family tension. Um, but wait, there's more. It gets better. Okay, here we go. It's like it's full circle, y'all. It's gonna come back around. So, due to his book achieving some fame, he went to India and he went to this Buddhist community in Sarnath to pursue ordination, and he became Sramanera Jivaka. But he wasn't able to get ordination at Sarnath because of some bullshit transphobic drama. So he turned to Tibet Buddhism and he went to Rizong Monastery in Ladakh, and he became ordained there as a novice monk under the name or under the order of Gelugpa, which is a school of Tibet Buddhism. And he took the name at that point Labzang Jivaka. And so he studied Buddhism and he wrote there until his visa expired. And he died in a hospital in Dalhousie, India in 1962 at age 47. And they don't know the cause of his death. So that's interesting. I don't know. It's a little sus, but he wrote a couple books under his Buddhist names, and he wrote this book called Growing Up into Buddhism. It's a book on Buddhism for British teens. And then a critical study of Vinaya. It's about Buddhist rules of ordination, which I think probably has to do with some of the reasons why he couldn't get ordination, and probably spills all the tea about what happened. Basically, I did read a little bit of what happened, and he studied with this guy who was his teacher and his mentor, and his mentor just straight up like shot him down because of his transness to be ordained, even though he was like studied and still very much respected him, even though he like left to go be a Tibet Buddhist. But yeah, so I'm sure that book spills all the tea, though. I think that's just a little part of it. And then he had an unofficial autobiography that his agent published after he passed. It's called Out of the Ordinary, A Life of Gender and Spiritual Transitions. So his full book titles, he has Self, a Study in Endocrinology and Ethics, Poems of Truth, and these both are as Michael Dillon. And then he has The Life of Malirapa as Labzang Jivaka, and this is about the life of a Tibetan yogi. And then he wrote one called Imji Getsul, also as Labzang Jivaka, and it's about life in a monastery. And then the last one was after he passed, which was the Out of the Ordinary, A Life of Gender and Spiritual Transitions, both as Michael Dillon and Labzang Jivaka. And there's this really awesome article about him, more specifically about his spiritual life. It's on tricycle.org. It's called Becoming Jivaka. And I just felt like that story was, I don't know, kind of full circle of what we were talking about with connecting to spirituality and queerness. And Buddhism does have a special place in my heart because I am involved in a Buddhist program for my recovery from substance abuse. And so I'm like, and it's specifically it's a trans Buddhist like weekly meeting for people who are recovering from addiction. And so this story holds like a special place in my heart, like very blessed to have and know the history of this transcestor. But yeah, so much, so much goodness. Any thoughts on Michael Dillon or or how testosterone was discovered?
I will skip that latter one.
Okay. Yeah, I know, it's so
Yeah, it's messed up. But I mean, that is so cool. really glad that you researched that and shared that, because I feel the same way. Like there's a like special connection, because I think that his journey, a lot of trans people can really relate to, because I think it's fairly common to go through kind of a spiritual transition, um of some sort with your queerness as well, especially if you're in a very queerphobic religion. So I felt a lot of connection to that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I will also link those articles because they're very interesting and there's so much more to his story, especially with the beginning and coming out to this barren family too. So yeah, it's very, I don't know, enlightening, illuminating, and very cool that it is like a piece of representation that is like very much real. And yeah,
And inspiring. Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally. Well, that was our final segment. And I am going to, you know what? I forgot to do my freaking menstruation history theme music, which is this, which is me playing this classical history while I teach about people learning about testosterone. But yeah, any last thoughts on any of it?
I mean, it's funny, like we've been talking for quite a while now, and
A
we've
couple
only
hours.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
and we've only really touched like the surface of things. And so it's like, I don't really have anything that I can say that to like wrap it up. There's plenty of other things we could have talked about, but I think that this was a good episode. I think it was a good discussion. So,
Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience with me too. I know, like,
of course.
there's lots of those technical difficulties. One random thought I had about testosterone though. Final thoughts, which is very random, but I thought about this about the side effects of testosterone. And when I have my period or like my luteal phase, what happens is your like LH and your estrogen and progesterone get lower. And so testosterone is the driving force in your luteal phase. And in your ovulation phase, you get a spike in testosterone. And I'm like, cool. I see the effects, which are that I do get the oily skin and um I don't notice like a increase in hair growth because I'm just very hairy, so I don't really like always take the hair off my face. But my random thought is, what if I'm not the creator, so it's not like I can do anything about it, but like it would be cool if like when we were ovulating or when we were in our luteal phase, like we also got a little voice change or a little muscle gain too. And so just like at random points in our, or like at those points in our cycle when we're just ovulating, we're just like, hey, like let me like just lift this car up and just like, suddenly just super jacked, suddenly like super deep voice. And I just think that would be super cool instead of just you know, oily skin and but
Well,
yeah, wish you
they
could pick and choose what parts get affected.
and trans women can speak to this, but unfortunately, both the deep voice and the hair growth are permanent things.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't really like go into those and then go out of them. If you get them, they're there, like
Yeah.
they're not going anywhere, which I am happy with, obviously, but
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, if they weren't, but again, not the I'm not the a person who chose evolution, this evolution of us, but something something I thought of. would be cool in a parallel universe, maybe that does happen, but like,
I mean,
um
I prefer shape shifting. Just
right. Yeah.
uh
Yes.
if we get to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, yeah, it's a whole other power there for sure. All right. So I would love to have you on the pod again, and I'm really excited to get more fantastic guests on this pod, and I'm going to go harder on this podcast and making content and making and doing the things. Just takes time, but thank you all for listening so much. Thank you so much for being on this pod. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great whatever part of your day you're in. And that's it. And we're done.